Well, trust me, there's more than enough baseball bats in Victoria for both Albo and Andrews to cop a whack. I know how these things work. This petition is a data harvesting exercise. Thanks to this petition and with Turnbull's connivance, just like his earlier work in bringing The Guardian to Australia, Rudd now has more than 500,000 email signatures, and you can be sure they'll be used to bombard people with hard left propaganda and urge them to boycott the Murdoch media.
My question today is, why is it that there's a certain double standard where certain people are able to get away with calling politicians names or calling them out for certain things as journalists, and yet other people aren't? It seems like anybody on the Labour side, when they get called out for anything or they get called names, they have to take it on the chin, and you know, they have no defense in terms of the media. The media out there, they just slaughter them. And yet, as soon as a poor liberal politician has any form of criticism, well, we've just got to coddle them, don't we? Like the little babies that they are. But in all reality, what's really messed up about the situation is the amount of double standards. I mean, even John Howard would not have done this. And I know that there's a lot of criticism about John Howard out there. But, I mean, yeah, just watch this clip.
And the big talking point, of course, was how this student had a screwdriver in his hand. Now, you'd think that would pose a big security risk. And we even asked Peter Costello how he'd feel if that guy jabbed a screwdriver into the eye of the PM.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
Very honest. Very honest. Still, the screwdriver incident did expose holes in the PM security code.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they call about screwdrivers, where do they draw the line? I mean, what other implements is it okay to carry when hugging the Prime Minister?
Like, how is this really different, though?
Handshake? Oh, that's okay.
Good to see you, mate. You're right. Good on you.
Thanks, good on you. Go for Nancy's record, eh? He'll hug anyone. He's a tart, isn't he?
He gives good hug. I wanted another one after that.
Well, his security minders know he loves a hug, and by the looks of that, I'm sure they'd let anything past.
Not quite anything.
I was just getting some trees down.
So if you look at Sky News, we've got Dictator Dan having 65 trains built by a company linked to the Uyghur slave labor. Dictator Dan is trying to build a COVID gulag. Daniel Andrews acts like a military dictator. Alan Jones. Torrent of rumours surrounding Daniel Andrews' sick leave and all that. There's like, that's a whole nother ballgame. Daniel Andrews is an elected dictator and nobody can control him. Daniel Andrews behaving like worst most comical East European dictator. Andrews wants to remain as Dictator Dan for another 12 months. Like, I mean, I reckon Dan Andrews should sue Peter Credlin and above. They've even got buses and all that. Look at that. Look at that. Like, I hope that's photoshopped, but dare I say, I would not be surprised if it's not. But I mean, how are they able to complain about that? They're like saying all this stuff about Dan Andrews. So I guess let's go and look at the torrent of rumours surrounding Daniel Andrews' sick leave.
Why Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews has been off work for nearly 3 months. He won't be back at his desk for another week or two at least. After, and this is the official story, he fell down slippery stairs at a beach house. He broke several ribs and did a lot of damage to his spine. Obviously, that's bad, and we wish him the very best for his recovery. Nasty stuff. Well, that's the official story.
You can tell that hurt him to say, "We wish you well." Like, you can tell he's got hatred.
And Victorians have, other than the bare details I've just given you, been told virtually nothing else about their premier's injury. A little bit about a few steps he was
it's
managing
not really
to
our
take,
business to know
etc.,
his
but
health.
basically, not why he is now supposedly ruling the state from his sickbed for 3 months. And when facts are absent, people supply their own. The rumours are amazing. Andrews was drunk when he got hurt. Some say he was beaten up by a union official. No, he was beaten up by a man over a personal grudge that I won't mention. He fell down the stairs. when he was home.
The personal grudge. The personal grudge is something very interesting. So that is a career-destroying rumor with no evidence. So somebody claimed that Daniel Andrews was with their underage child, if you get me. That was a rumor that was spread around, and that's what I'm pretty sure he's referring to. That's been all over the YouTube comment section everywhere.
Of the house of a billionaire mate. Now, not the slightest proof of it for any of that I can see. But there's been a torrent of these stories. Everyone says, "Oh, I know someone who knows someone," blah, blah. And it's not been helped by Andrew saying so little and releasing only a couple of pictures of himself since his injury wearing a...
See this injury? So the band on his arm is actually a blood pressure machine thing. And I've got one somewhere. But basically people were saying it was a robotic arm.
brace. But as the rumours grew, as journalists kept pushing for a date to the Premier's return, Andrew's wife on the weekend did post a tweet of herself giving her husband a haircut, although you couldn't actually see much of his face to be sure it was him.
That chin though.
So off went the
It is
conspiracy
him.
theorists again. And yesterday, the Victorian Liberals finally joined in stirring up this rumour mill, almost like they actually know something. They issued a long list of questions, like, what time was it?
So let's see, what time did the incident occur? Who was at the house at the time? Like, I mean, these are all details that the public definitely don't need to know.
When Andrews was hurt. Who else was in the house? Where was the house? Who owns it? Were police called? And so on. And this prompted a line of Labor ministers and MPs today to abuse the Liberals.
I treat it with the contempt that it deserves. You know, this is more about how the Liberal Party treats people.
Can I just say that, I don't know if you guys noticed, but he used the term abuse the Liberals. That kind of indicates that he's trying to spin this into something else. But what actually seems to be happening here is James Merlino is actually, you know, saying to the Liberals that it's not on, that they shouldn't be pandering to these rumours.
No decency, no respect. They should be ashamed of themselves. The Premier indicated he'll have more to say in terms of his return. It'll be sometime this month, based, as always, on his doctor's advice.
In fact, Daniel Andrews did have a little bit more to say today. He responded to this stirring by authorising the release of a statement by Ambulance Victoria that actually didn't answer about any of the Liberals' questions, just said Andrews had fallen down steps.
Yeah, exactly.
That,
Like,
of a house in Sorrento, but didn't say which one. Nor did it say...
why does it need to, like, what I don't understand is why do the public need to know what house it was, like, what address it was? Like, these are really bizarre details to require, in my personal opinion.
Who called the ambulance.
There's
It was all
privacy.
very curious. Well, joining me is James Campbell, the National Weekend Political Editor for the Saturday and Sunday News Corporation papers. James, thanks for your time. How do you explain, first of all these conspiracy theories?
Well,
They're really fishing.
sadly, Andrew, as you know, people in Victoria have got a lot of time on their hands at the moment at home to muse on things like this.
Definitely. I agree with this.
And people have got used to watching Andrews during lockdowns 1, 2 and 3 at his daily press conferences. And he's sort of become a large sort of paramount leader in a sort of Soviet style or South Central American dictator who sort of impinges on our lives in every way. So it was...
Really? Oh, did they just actually compare that? Okay.
surprising, really, that when the leader disappeared suddenly, we would all begin to speculate as to what had become of him.
But speculate so, well, to his detriment. That I find easier. Like, you know, he's doing these really bizarre things. You know, there's something sinister here. Now, first of all, what evidence is there for the various conspiracy theories I've rattled through, or what evidence is there, on the other hand, against them?
Well, I actually think, before we get to that, you've actually undersold some of the conspiracy theories. At the top end of the range, in the early days, I heard he was actually dead. That was told to me quite confidently. Someone else told me that they had heard he tried to kill himself. So that's at the top end of the spectrum. Then we have had
I highly doubt that.
acquired brain injury, broken jaw with a wire wired up. That one flared up this week again. He's all of them involve copious amounts of alcohol and violence perpetrated by billionaires' sons, CFMEU thugs, leaders of large corporations, sometimes in the presence of sporting stars, sometimes not in the presence of sporting stars. Really, if you can think it, someone has, and at this point, I don't know, I'm getting tired of the number of people who either ring or send text messages saying, well, why haven't you reported this? I heard this.
I know.
My friend was there, or my friend knows someone who was there, and there's just a general sort of... people are becoming quite short-tempered at the failure of the lazy and complacent media to report these facts, to which I always...
Like how nobody's reporting on the fact that Jordan versus John Barilano. Just saying.
Send them back an A, B and C. Which one would you like? Which billionaire would you like to have been the perpetrator? How bad would you have liked the injuries to be? And what that speaks to is none of us have any evidence that any of this is true.
But I wonder, like a lot of this has been pushed, like a couple of really crazy conspiracy sites, someone who knows someone who knows someone who knows someone, internet, all that kind of stuff. But are Labor MPs also peddling any of this?
Not until recently, but I have to be honest. I had basically consigned this to liberal fan fiction, and most of the serious people I think in the Liberal Party have as well. I think that what the questions they're asking were just sort of pot stirring, but. Someone in his government actually said to me a few weeks ago, they rang up and said, look, I was 99.999% certain all this was nonsense, but somebody told me something at the races the other day, and I've come to the conclusion that there might be just a time. And I was sort of like, oh, wow, I don't know where to start. It's not for want of trying that anyone in the media in Melbourne has failed.
I can't believe I stumbled upon this.
Yeah, but... one theory, by the way, was that Andrews fell down the stairs of billionaire Lindsay Fox, also down in the Mornington Peninsula, and that led the Fox family to consider suing for defamation. I don't know, they need to be that sensitive, and they decided, well, let it go, no one's going to believe it. But why are the Liberals now asking all these questions yesterday? Because that implies, or at least suggests to me, that they think they know something. Whether they do or not, I have no idea, but they seem to think they must be onto something here.
Well, you'd hope so, but with this mob, you can't be sure, I'm afraid. What I mean, why now? I'm personally bewildered that it's taken them this long to start asking these questions. These are questions they should have been asking 3 months ago.
So I'm going to say here that I find it very interesting. It is very interesting that these guys are pointing out that the Liberals are making defamation-styled claims on Dan Andrews. That seems very interesting. If you, dare I say, look into it, maybe, just maybe, there might be a defamation case here for Dan Andrews to partake in.